5 Michelin Endurance Cup rounds will be on the schedule next season, but that's not the only change on IMSA's 2024 calendar. One staple of the schedule is missing. Meanwhile, a couple others are being brought back. We've eagerly awaited it, and the time has finally come. The 2024 IMSA schedule is finally been released. And man oh man, there are things to talk about. Now, typically, IMSA has released the schedule as part of the State of the Sport address, which in recent years has taken place during the round at Road America. However, this year is a little bit different. The State of the Sport address was moved to the season-ending Motul Petit Le Mans, but the schedule was still released during the Road America weekend. Let's take a look at the 2024 schedule. The schedule starts off with the Roar Before the 24, January 19th to 21st, before we head into round 1 of the calendar, the iconic season opener, the Rolex 24. That'll take place January 25th to 28th. Round 2 of the championship heads to Sebring for the 12 Hours of Sebring. No real change there. It goes March 13th to 16th. Round 3 at Long Beach is where we start to see some change. It goes April 19th and 20th and will feature just the GTP class as well as the GTD class. Round 4 heads to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and it will feature the GTP, GTD Pro class, and GTD classes. That goes May 10th to 12th. That'll be followed up for round 5 from May 31st to June 1st, and that's the Detroit Grand Prix. That will feature the GTP and the GTD Pro classes. The 6 Hours of the Glen is round 6 on the calendar, June 27th to 30th. The third Michelin Endurance Cup round of the season. IMSA then makes its trip north of the border for round 7 at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, July 12th to 14th. That will feature the LMP2, GTD Pro, and GTD classes. For round 8, we head to Road America, August 2nd to 4th. That will feature all 4 of the WeatherTech Championship classes. And then we head to VIR for round 9 of the calendar, August 23rd to 25th. That will be a GT only round with just the GTD Pro and GTD classes present. Round 10 sees us head to Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the new addition to the Michelin Endurance Cup, September 20th to 22nd, as that will be a 6-hour race at Indy. And then we round out the season with round 11 at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, October 9th to 12th. And as always, it will feature all of the WeatherTech Championship classes. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, and there are some big changes to the schedule. Let's break it down and start with the additions to the calendar. Detroit is back on the schedule with a GTP and GTD Pro only round. You'll recall that IMSA raced at Belle Isle in previous years before the decision was made to move the race from the island circuit downtown. The WeatherTech Championship would take 2023 off of going to Detroit, but the Michelin Pilot Challenge would still make a visit on the IndyCar weekend, except it would feature the GS only race. And then, of course, the other major addition to the calendar is that Indy becomes the 5th Michelin Endurance race event on the schedule. It was heavily rumored that Indy was going to transition to a Michelin Endurance Cup event next season, but it looks like that is going to be confirmed before we even see a lap of racing action turned at the track. Okay, yes, I do understand that IMSA has raced here previously, but I'm more referring to current day IMSA with the class structure and everything that they have in place now. Now, despite some of these additions to the calendar, the schedule stays pretty much the same as we've seen in previous years. Many of the races that we've seen previously on the calendar are maintaining right around the same weekend that they've hosted the races in previous years. However, there are some big changes to the calendar though. And it doesn't necessarily come in the form of schedule changes or being removed from the calendar completely, but there are going to be some classes that are absent from rounds that, in some cases, have been staples of the round in previous years. There will be no GTD Pro class at Long Beach. In 2023, the event featured the GTP, GTD Pro, and GTD classes, but next year the GTD Pro class will be absent. Now this one makes quite a bit of sense. It looks like a clear attempt to balance the number of GTD Pro and GTD races throughout the season. But this isn't the only race that sees some class changes. There will be no LMP2 cars at Laguna Seca next year. I don't entirely think that's a bad thing. I think a little bit of a reduction in traffic will help out the racing at the track. But the big subtraction is there's going to be no GTP class cars next year at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Now, this decision seems to be a direct result of adding Detroit back to the calendar and having the GTP cars go there, but this one hits pretty close to home for me, and I want to talk about it for a second. This round of the IMSA schedule was hit very hard during the COVID years. The round was completely lost in 2020 and 2021, and then even upon returning in 2022, there were fewer cars on the grid than we had seen in previous years. But despite this, the fans still turned out in packs. They wanted to show up and support IMSA's only Canada round, but also IMSA's only international round. And even despite the lower than we probably hoped for turnout and car count in 2022, the fans still came back even stronger in 2023, and it was just another great race weekend. And unfortunately now, with all the excitement around the GTP class cars, and we're just not going to see them next year. The GTP class cars and the highest level of prototype racing in North America isn't going to make its trip north of the border. And I know that it being my home track, I'm going to be a little bit more disappointed than most, but it's a tough pill to swallow and incredibly disappointing to see on the schedule. I really hope, I understand that this might not be able to be fixed for next season regardless of everything, but I really do hope that this decision is reconsidered when we're planning the next year's schedule. Unfortunately, this isn't the only significant loss with this schedule release. We're not going to be heading to Lime Rock Park next year with any form of IMSA. Well, I suppose we haven't seen all of the Support Series schedules released yet, but we haven't seen any schedules with Lime Rock Park on it yet. Lime Rock Park has been an iconic date on the calendar for a number of years now. And while I'll be the first to admit that the quality of racing that we've seen at Lime Rock the past couple of seasons maybe hasn't been the best, it is still very disappointing to see this not on the calendar at all next year. However, this may not be the last that we hear of Lime Rock Park. They released a statement that the 2024 IMSA schedule will not include a Lime Rock Park event due to the unavoidable scheduling conflicts. IMSA and Lime Rock Park are in ongoing conversations for a return to the Connecticut facility in 2025. Time will tell, but I still have my fingers crossed that we're going to be paying a visit to this facility once again in the future. Now, scheduling conflicts were referenced in Lime Rock's statement, and that is not the last time we're going to talk about scheduling conflicts today. But before we talk about some of those major scheduling conflicts with some other international series, let's quickly touch on the IMSA Support Series calendars. The Michelin Pilot Challenge calendar features many of the same tracks as 2023. We start off with the Roar Before the 24. Pilot Challenge will then also support the Rolex 24 with a 4-hour race. They'll follow that up with the rounds at Sebring, WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and a 4-hour race at Mid-Ohio, before heading to Watkins Glen, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, Road America, VIR, Indianapolis, and rounding out their season at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Now, of course, the biggest change on the Michelin Pilot Challenge calendar is that addition of the 4-hour race at Mid-Ohio. We're returning to Mid-Ohio. Now, you'll recall that IMSA previously raced at Mid-Ohio before excluding it from the championship this past year. With this change, the round at Indy returns to just the regular 2-hour race format. And as well, we will no longer see any GS or TCR only rounds. Another support series that sees many similar race weekends to the Michelin Pilot Challenge is the VP Racing Fuel Sports Car Challenge. They'll start their season off at Daytona with 2 rounds there, before heading to the streets of St. Pete to support the IndyCar series on March 8th to 12th. They'll then head to Mid-Ohio, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, VIR, and round out their season at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Now, of course, the big change here is that they're going to be supporting IndyCar for that round at St. Pete. We didn't get the MX5 Cup schedule for next season released, but it makes me wonder if maybe we're going to see the MX5 Cup not head to St. Pete next year, and instead the VP Racing Fuel Sports Car Challenge head there. Many of you know that I love the MX5 Cup, so I'll definitely keep you updated when that schedule is released. The Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series also released their schedule. They're going to start their season off at Sebring before heading to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, Watkins Glen. They'll also head to Circuit of the Americas, where they'll support the WEC round there before heading to Indianapolis and then rounding out their season with the Lamborghini World Finals. The brand new Mustang Challenge schedule was also released. They'll start their season at Mid-Ohio before heading to Watkins Glen, Road America. They will also head to Circuit of the Americas to support the WEC as well, and they will round their season off with a to-be-announced date at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Some interesting dates in here. First of all, I think that date at Charlotte is just going to be them supporting the NASCAR round when they head to the Charlotte Roval. They've historically done that in the latter part of their season. Talked about this before. I think it makes complete sense that the Mustang Challenge would play a support series role at one of the NASCAR races. And then the other interesting date is where this series will join the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Series at COTA to support the WEC. Now, speaking of the WEC, there are a number of conflicting dates with existing World Endurance Championship rounds. For starters, the 6 Hours of Imola conflicts with the Long Beach round on April 19th and 20th. The 6 Hours of Spa conflicts with Laguna Seca on May 10th to 12th. And the 6 Hours of Sao Paulo conflicts with the CTMP round July 12th to 14th. Now look, I'll acknowledge that the Long Beach round is a little bit out of Imsa's hands here. They share that date with IndyCar, so there may not have been a lot that they could do about that. But the other rounds, it's kind of tough. For that round at CTMP especially, considering that both series are going to be racing in pretty similar time zones, it very well might mean that fans are going to have to choose between watching the Imsa round at CTMP or watching the WEC round at Sao Paulo. And when push comes to shove, if the GTP cars aren't going to be at CTMP, I think for a lot of fans, it's going to be an easy decision to just watch the WEC race. And unfortunately, these aren't all the conflicts that I have to tell you about. The Nürburgring 24 conflicts with the Detroit round from May 31st to June 1st. And the Spa 24 Hours conflicts with the 6 Hours of the Glen taking place June 27th to 30th. These are big for the GT cars, as it's likely going to force drivers, whether they're going to participate in one of these iconic 24-hour races or if they're going to race in the Imsa rounds. Now, the Detroit round may not be as affected as the Watkins Glen round because it does just feature the GTD Pro cars, but the Glen is a Michelin Endurance Cup round and will likely force drivers to make a difficult decision. However, I do also want to point out that Imsa can't take all of the blame with these scheduling decisions. Like at Long Beach, Imsa is joining IndyCar for their round in Detroit. So Imsa's not the only partner in play there, and it's very well known that the Spa 24-hour round, it's been moved around on the calendar in recent years because F1 really can't make up their mind on when they want to race at Spa, and unfortunately F1 is taking priority over the 24-hour round, causing some difficulties with other series around the world. Still, though, it's going to be disappointing to see that drivers are going to have to make a decision on what race that they want to compete in, and that fans are going to have to make a decision on what race they want to watch. Regardless, there are positives to take away from this schedule release, and there are negatives as well, but I want to hear what you think. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of IMSA's 2024 schedule release. I have a feeling that these are gonna get a little bit spicy. And if you want to check out my dream Imsa calendar, you can check that out right here. Once again, a big shout out to all of the Patreon supporters. If you too want to support the show, then you can head to patreon.com/offinthe-s's. Once again though, thanks for tuning in. I hope everyone has a great race weekend. It doesn't go off in the S's.